Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio, where we provide actionable health information on a week-to-week basis that can help you improve your life. Feel free, head over to justinhealth.com, where we have various opt-in video series on more in-depth health topics such as female hormones, thyroid, and gut health. Also, while you're there, feel free and schedule a consult with myself, Dr. J, and or my colleagues. We're available worldwide to provide natural health support for any of your major health issues. Again, welcome to the podcast and enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Really excited to have an awesome podcast guest today. Jodi Cohen is going to be talking about the Parasympathetic Summit, which is going to be all about how to promote parasympathetic nervous system, which is about helping your body heal and improve. Jodi, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my God, so honored to be here. Thank you. And I feel like the timing is perfect for people who don't really know what parasympathetic is. Your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, which controls your automatic functions like breathing, heart rate, digestion, immunity, has kind of two gears. When your body thinks there's danger and it has to survive, it presses the gas pedal and kind of routes all of your blood flow and your oxygen to your arms and your legs so that you can either fight back or flee. And then the danger passes and you hit the brakes, which is the parasympathetic, and everything returns to normal. And it's kind of like cleaning up after the party, right? You can digest your food, blood flow routes back to your digestion. And what happens, especially now when we're so anxious, when anticipatory stress makes the body think it's in danger, we kind of get stuck in the wrong gear. And so all of those maintenance, cleanup, health functions kind of get put on the back burner. And if they stay on the back burner forever, your health kind of suffers.
People talk about the parasympathetic nervous system. A lot of times that's connected to the vagus nerve, correct?
Yes, exactly. Your vagus nerve is really the gear shift between that fight or flight sympathetic state and the rest and digest parasympathetic state.
Yeah, and the vagus, that terminology means the wanderer. So it's the kind of the nerve that goes from the brainstem and kind of wanders down and it hits all of the organs. Like you talked about a lot of digestive impact regarding the parasympathetics because we need good HCl and enzymes. So like to be able to get access to all of those nutrients and to break all your proteins and fats and antioxidants down, we need good digestive support, and getting into the parasympathetics helps that.
Yeah, actually the vagus nerve wanders through every organ of digestion. So it triggers your mouth to release saliva, which helps start to break down those proteins so that they're better absorbed. And your stomach releases hydrochloric acid. It helps the pancreas release digestive enzymes, the gallbladder release bile. And then the most important thing that people don't know is it kind of helps with the motility wave. Think of it as kind of like, the moving walkway that goes through your system and makes sure that things don't stay too long in your gut and cause like SIBO or, IBS or any problems, and also make sure that you don't get constipated so that things leave. So that when you're kind of stuck in fight or flight sympathetic dominance, all, the moving walkway doesn't go. And that's when problems occur.
So anyone listening to this right now, if you're liking what you're hearing, make sure you click down below. We're going to put a link for the Parasympathetic Summit right down below. So make sure you subscribe. I was part of that summit along with 30 other.
50.
50. Wow. Oh
I know. Well, you know what it is? I'm anxious. And so I started really early. And so I had almost everything done a month before the deadline. And then wonderful people like you, who I've loved and admired, said, "Oh, can I be on?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, yes."
That's great. That's awesome. Very cool. So I urge everyone listening to subscribe to get access to that awesome info. So you have a website, vibrantblueoils.com.
Yeah.
Now, you use a lot of oils that kind of help people promote healing, relaxation. Can you give me like a top 3 list that you use to kind of get that parasympathetic nervous response activated?
Yeah, and I just want to back up. The reason I found oils, my now ex-husband attempted suicide and had to be hospitalized. And once I knew he was safe and it wasn't my job to keep him alive, I hit rock bottom. The kids were 5 and 7 at the time, so it wasn't super convenient to sleep all day. And I knew enough. I knew it was my adrenals. I kept trying to ingest remedies to help the adrenals, and nothing was working.
Right.
A friend brought over oils, and I kind of made up a blend that I topically applied for the adrenals, and it worked right away. And what I didn't realize is chronic cortisol leads to inflammation of the gut. So my gut was so damaged that nothing I was taking, like ingesting, was really getting absorbed and assimilated. So that's how I got into oils, because I realized, even if your gut is really messed up, you can still smell things. You can still, we know that like nicotine patches or hormone creams go in through the skin. So that's why I got started in oils. And then I started realizing, because I'd been in clinical practice, all the blind spots. If someone's deficient in vitamin B, that's easy. You can supplement with vitamin B. If they're stuck in parasympathetic or stuck in sympathetic, that was hard. And a lot of the remedies that, you can teach people to breathe or meditate, that's hard. It's not like an instant skill. You can say, splash your face with freezing water, which causes the blood flow to come to warm it up. People don't like that either. It's uncomfortable. They didn't like gagging themselves with a tongue depressor. But what I realized, because the anatomy of the vagus nerve, as you said, it starts at the back of the head, and then it splits and winds around both sides, and it's actually most accessible and the thickest kind of right here. Like if you touch behind your earlobe on your mastoid bone, it's like the width of a piano chord there, and it's smaller in other places. So that's why they actually do this kind of surgery. It's a little bit like a pacemaker surgery, and they implant an electrical device here and then a battery down below. It's pretty invasive, but you can use oils. Oils are super stimulatory, like clove, which has a million other benefits. And then lime has really small molecules. It's kind of like, when you combine colors, you can take blue and red and put them together and you get purple, which is different. Then you can add white and make it lavender. You can combine oils, and it kind of draws the best from both of them. So I created this blend, parasympathetic, that's clove and lime. And what's super cool is, you might not be able to deep breathe. You might struggle with meditation and fall asleep, but you can dab a little thing right here. You can carry this in your purse. This is a really easy thing to comply with. And then you feel better. You're like, okay, I'm not constipated. Okay, I don't feel bloated. Okay, I feel a little bit like calmer and less anxious. And as you know, like the supplements that people know help them, like they feel less tired, they're really good at compliance. Once you figure out this is working for me, you're all in.
And it's a good replacement, because some people, they're already used to like reaching for a medication. Well, let's try something a little bit more natural that's going to have a good benefit. It's not going to have the side effects, and it's at least, a good step to other healthy things. I imagine once you're doing oils, you're probably now thinking about the food you're eating and other healthier habits too. So it kind of creates an awareness, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, and definitely that cascade. Yeah, it's like crawl before you walk before you run.
Yeah.
Once you're like, okay, I did that. I used to, in yoga, sometimes these teachers would be so sneaky, and suddenly you're doing like a handstand or a headstand, and you're like, I had no idea I could do that. What else can I do?
Right. That's awesome. Very cool. All right, so you have that parasympathetic blend. I think you said clove and lime. Is that true?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I would think like you'd have maybe like a lavender or something like that. I'm just curious what your
Well,
originally behind that.
No, and a lot of people, that's a great question. Originally, I was thinking like, it's parasympathetic. It should be sedative, and oils like lavender, chamomile. We know that they're all relaxing, frankincense, even the resins. But I realized that what it is you need to stimulate it. It's kind of like if you think about, the old cars where you actually have to manually shift gears. You have to do something active and energizing to kind of change lanes. So this stimulates the vagus nerve, and in stimulating it, it's like, I'm switching gears.
And you're using that access point where the nerve's a little bit more superficial and more broad to get access to it. Exactly.
And the other cool thing is, there's a researcher out of Tufts, Michael Van Eckler, talks about the vagus nerve infection hypothesis. And basically it's this idea that the vagus nerve has such a broad depth, and, it gets into your system everywhere. So any kind of small minor infection can basically, the body can pick it up as you're infected, and it goes into like cell danger response or sickness response. So you get tired, so you don't move, chronic fatigue syndrome. You have pain, so you don't move, fibromyalgia. A lot of these things can be traced to an infection in the vagus nerve. And the most likely, one of the doctors on the summit, Marco Ruggio, he did this extensive research where he was taking ultrasounds of people's necks, and he was finding that often the vagus nerve was infected there because, we have all these toxins in our mouth that drain out, and, and they're exacerbated if you have like metal amalgams or any kind of cavitation, that has been compromised, or a root canal. So think about, kind of a congestion point, a bottleneck. You have toxins draining along the trigeminal nerve. They intersect with the vagus nerve. The neck has the structure, the lymph, the blood vessels, the nerves, any kind of compromise. If, as a chiropractor, if things aren't flowing, that can get congested. Yeah. Oh, totally. So the toxins accumulate here. Clove actually has, it has this constituent called eugenol, and it's been used in dentistry for years because it does two things. It numbs the pain, and it actually helps to address the underlying toxins. So if there's a toxicity or an infection that's, think of it like you're on an airplane, right? If you're in a row of seats and you're in the middle row and the people on either side of you are not petite people, you're not getting that armrest. You're really compressed and congested. Yeah. So if the vagus nerve is congested, it's bumping into the vascular system. You're not getting the blood flow. It's bumping into the lymph. You're not getting the drainage. So anything you can do, and Dr. Ruggio actually walks you through step by step how they started to, topically apply remedies to cause less congestion in the lymph, and all of a sudden the vagus nerve, you can see it in the pictures. It's kind of amazing.
What kind of remedies was he doing in his trials?
He was using Christine Schaffner's, he created their Sophia Flow Cream, which is a combination of essential oils and then other remedies. But what's interesting is that most people don't think about topically. Most people are kind of like, the lymph, you need to dry brush or rebound, or, we don't really have anything for that. But we do. It's these topically applied remedies. We actually have a lymph oil that's a lot of mint and things that kind of help open up vasculature and drainage. And she uses some oils in her product too. They're both good. It's kind of like, you
There's
get
a lot of things out there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of ways you can skin a cat, so to speak. What made you choose those oils? Was it your own clinical experience? Was it research that you saw? How did that go?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the reason I got into nutrition was my own squirmy kid. My first kid was super easy. I just assumed I was this great mom. Had another one 22 months later.
I've seen that. Having two kids now, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and he was just a wild child. Like, I really thought, I'm like, like you have the parenting, baby-proof people come to your house, and they're like, and here's this oven lock because some kids climb in the oven. And with my first one, I was like, no kid, what kid climbs in the oven? Oh, number two. Just like that I had that kid that did those things, and a friend noticed that he was being really well behaved, and then another mom handed out like a Ritz cracker, and he Jekyll-Hyde'd. And she said, my brother was on Ritalin his whole life, and it turns out he was just allergic to weird foods. You should check that out. I thought, I've done everything else. I can certainly do that. And we took him to a nutritionist who said he's really sensitive to corn, soy, and dairy. So we changed his diet, and we had a different kid the next day.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, how did I not know this? So I went back and got a degree in nutrition and was trying to work with other squirming kids. And I mean, like if they're wiggling all over, it's really hard to like assess them. So I learned this technique called muscle testing. That's a really good way to kind of ask the body questions. And it's what I was doing in my practice to help identify what remedies were good for kids. And so when I first got introduced to oils, I was really, I have never been at this kind of rock bottom, like just so mentally and physically exhausted, like literally getting up to do anything felt like a strain. So, someone gave me this box and I'm so drained. I'm like, all right, I can muscle test. So basically it's intuition. I muscle test. We have a blueprint in the body, right? There's a blueprint for what healthy adrenal tissue is supposed to look like. And sometimes you do things and you don't really realize that's what you're doing. That's what I've been doing in my practice the whole time, is kind of identifying what organ is in stress and then using supplements to help return that organ to balance so it would function well.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the lens that I was looking through when I was making these formulas. So I was like, all right, what combination, we humans have a blueprint and plants also have blueprints, and humans and plants are biofamiliar, so we share similar blueprints. So kind of like you can combine different colors to match a picture in a landscape, you can combine different oils to match the blueprint of a healthy organ. So I was using intuition to come up with the formulation. First I would kind of identify this needs to be in it, and then I would play with what 10% of this, 20% of this,
Wow.
the different variables. And then I have a team of people that kind of help me test it.
Yeah.
And they test, and then they can kind of mentally say, like, if we increase, the Roman chamomile from, 12% to 13. So we're just constantly refining and tweaking it. And then I go and I research, okay, why does balsam of Peru, which is a resin that's drawn from these plants in, the Amazon in Peru and Brazil, seem to help with sleep? What chemical constituents are present in this plant? Why is it working? And I would every single time be like, oh, that makes complete sense why this is helping. And so that's my process. It's a little bit nutty, but it always seems to work.
Interesting. And I'm just curious though, with your son, what were the oils that really helped? Because one thing I like about oils with kids is some kids don't want to swallow stuff, and they may be supplement averse, right? So it's hard to get them to do stuff. So you can kind of covertly put some on your fingers, rub behind their ears, and kind of get it in their bloodstream. So I like that. What oils did you find were the best on Max?
Yeah, so I definitely use parasympathetic, but kids are so intuitive. Like, I think as we get older, we forget, or we feel uncomfortable that, when the phone's ringing, we somehow know it's going to be our mother, or, we lose track of that. So with kids, I always kind of do a smell bar, and I let them pick whatever they like best. He loved orange. And
cool.
Orange is, all of the citrus blends are really calming, and they also help with focus. And, a lot of them that are expensive, like neroli and bergamot, those are kind of touted, but orange is super affordable, and kids love it. So he would like to smell that. We'd have him do that before he did homework. I'd give him a little foot rub before bed, but I just let him pick it. That was his favorite. But the ones that helped him the most, definitely parasympathetic, adrenal, because he'd get really wired. He was like a firecracker. He was always on. So just helping him to calm down. And then sometimes like liver, because he inherited my Ashkenazic liver, which is, I think the reason that a lot of the traditional Jewish foods are like beets, borscht, chopped liver, we eat all of the foods that we need so that our liver actually works, because I think we have a little bit of a genetic detriment.
So when you said adrenal and liver, what would those oils be to support those organs?
Yeah, I have it all listed out on my site, but and actually I have a book coming out in March of 2016 that I'm going to share the recipes, because with COVID, it breaks my heart. You really can't get anything into Australia these days, and it's super hard to get things to Europe and in India. And I have these people that are like, I think my poor husband could really benefit. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to give out the recipes. So
that's great. And that's March 2021, right?
March 2021, March 16th. It's essential oils to boost the brain and heal the body.
Awesome. That's great. So what else can people, so we talk about parasympathetics, right? We know the adrenals play a major role, and different things, obviously food, nutrition can help with that. What are some things clinically that you see with clients or on the oil side that you can nourish the adrenals?
So Titus Chu, who's a colleague and a functional neurologist, which means that he's looking at what part of the brain, it was cute. At one point I took my son to a functional neurologist, and he had all these little personality things that I thought were him, like he couldn't walk a straight line to save his life. He would like a diagonal walker. He would always spill stuff on himself. He had no spatial awareness. And it turns out his left brain was much more dominant than his right hemisphere of the brain. So we have Dr. Robert Melilio, who really talks about using oils to kind of balance the hemispheres. And to kind of a quick parasympathetic trick, Titus Chu talks about how anxiety and panic attacks is overactivation of your right frontal lobe. And so to kind of calm and balance that, you then activate the left frontal lobe, and that puts the two hemispheres in balance. And functional neurologists use essential oils a lot in their practice because your nose, your olfactory nerve, number one, goes directly to, sometimes in the body, the right brain controls the left body. Your olfactory channels go directly to this frontal part.
Same side.
Yeah, exactly. So you can just smell something, it can be anything you like. It can be lavender, it can be orange, it can be parasympathetic. You can actually, like Ujjayi breathing, plug one nostril, smell through the left nostril. That activates the left frontal lobe, balances the brain. You feel less anxious. Anxiety is my thing, my daughter's thing too. I have panic attacks. I have all these things, and that always helps. I basically, even if I'm walking my dog, this is in my pocket in case I need it. So
that's cool.
That is my favorite quick fix.
What about high levels of cortisol? Obviously, high levels of cortisol can cause anxiety, right? So you mentioned maybe that plays a big role. Anything you do to help with the high adrenaline or high cortisol states?
Yeah.
Do you add any nutrients in to kind of be supportive to those oils?
I mean, there are tons of nutrients that are helpful. And, if you're able to digest, there are a lot of adaptogenic herbs that I love, like ashwagandha, rhodiola. But one thing that I think that oils work like adaptogenic herbs. Like one of the things, I've done those 24-hour cortisol tests where you're spitting in the tube. And what I found is that it's not flatline. It's not like my cortisol level is either too high all the time or too low all the time. It's too high at night when I'm trying to go to sleep and too low in the morning when I need energy. Exactly. Yeah. And, if you think about the nutrients that you can take, the supplements, you kind of have to time it right. If you're already too high and you're taking something that makes it higher, that's not going to be such a positive experience. So with oils, we have two blends. One is the adrenal blend that just kind of evens you out. If you're too high, it takes you down. If you're too low, it brings you up. And then one for the hypothalamus. And this is something that most people don't talk about. They just assume that all cortisol is related to the adrenals, not realizing that it's a bit of a cascade, the hypothalamus pituitary axis. Your hypothalamus in your brain controls all your endocrine organs. It's constantly reading the environment and signals in your body to figure out how do we return it to balance. Like when you're driving, at one point you might be a little too far to the left, so you just course correct. Your hypothalamus is your course corrector. And it does that by sending chemical messages to kind of the COO, the one who executes, your pituitary gland, which then sends message to your thyroid, your adrenals, all of your endocrine organs. So sometimes it's called this negative feedback loop. The hypothalamus sends these messages out, then messages come back, and it kind of course corrects, like, oh, we're good on cortisol, we don't need more. And if, the hypothalamus is kind of overwhelmed, like my friend likes to say, you can't mow the lawn when the house is on fire. If there's so much going on, it can be like your phone and it just doesn't get the right information and send things out. So we have a blend. It's hard to get things into the brain. I mean, that's the biggest challenge and the biggest aha with oils. They're super small and fat soluble, so they cross the blood-brain barrier. So we have one, it contains pine, which has a lot of research on it, but you just put it right here and it's almost like it sends the right frequency, the right blueprint, whatever you want to call it, to return the hypothalamus to balance so that it's then sending better messages to the adrenals so that you're not so hypercortisol or hypercortisol.
That's good. Excellent.
Yeah.
So you got your book coming out this March 16, 2021. What's the book going to be called?
It's called Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body.
Love it.
And you can grab it on Amazon pre-sale. Amazon pre-sale is a funny thing. You basically, they match the best price ever. So if you're a bargain shopper, and we're actually going to have a gift card so that you can, and a stocking stuffer, so that if you want to buy the book, we'll send you a little coupon that you can put into the stocking with like a deal on getting an oil like Parasympathetic to go with it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And your favorite so far is what? Parasympathetic?
I love Parasympathetic, and honestly, with everything that's going on, we have a blend called Circulation that has a lot of cypress. I've found, and a lot of clinicians have found, like if you're concerned about getting sick, cypress does a really wonderful job of kind of protecting the lung lining. So, they talk about this current concern. It kind of happens in two phases, right? It either gets into the lungs and the lung lining is solid and it doesn't go any further and it was a minor cold, or it gets into your system and causes a cytokine storm. So you kind of want to make sure that bouncer at the gate of your lungs is really working well. And so the circulation oil I just put over my lungs. And it also helps if I'm on deadline and I have to get something done, I put a little bit at the base of my skull, because that improves oxygen flow in the blood. And when you have more blood and more oxygen flow, it's easier to focus.
Love that. That's awesome. Very cool. Well, any other clinical pearls? So we have the Parasympathetic Summit. I'm in that. A lot of other great speakers, 50 plus, you said. We'll put the link down below. So if you guys are loving it, click down below. Make sure you register. We also got the link for Jodi's website, vibrantblueoils.com. Those are going to be there for you as well. March 16, 2021. We'll get the book up there, pre-sale Amazon link. Anything else, Jodi, you want to listen to or share the listeners with?
Well, what's funny? Like we're about to come into Thanksgiving, the holiday of gratitude, and the fastest way that you can shift yourself into parasympathetic is mindset and gratitude. So if you're worried about what's going on in the world, just focus on what you're grateful for. It could be something as simple as the ability to move your body and to take a breath and to have, it's a gorgeous day here in Seattle, to have a sunny sky, So, I guess I would just like to leave on that note that how you choose to experience the world is in your control, and you can always be grateful for things.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, when you need the world to kind of conform to the things that you want, then you tend to be like let down.
Yeah.
But when you can basically put your focus on the things that you want to appreciate, right? Then you're kind of in the driver's seat. So I like that. It's definitely an empowering.
Yes. Yes. You always are in control of how you feel and how you think.
Well, thanks so much, Jodi. Head over to vibrantblueoils.com, Parasympathetic Summit, links down below. Hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. Have a good one, Jodi. Great chatting with you.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.